Yes, this is Captain Hook smut. Yes, I did love it. Okay, girls, 2025 is over, but I am completely obsessed with all of these YouTubers who are doing tier ranking videos of the books they read this year. I could sit and watch them all day. So I decided I'm going to do my first video and tier rank all of the books I read this year. I'm not going to lie. This year, I did fall into a deep slump in the summer, and so I did not reach my goal. I originally set my goal for like 65 or something. That is very obtainable for most book talk, booktube girlies, but for me, I very much struggled. So I read 40 books. It's going to be quick. We're going to get through them, and I'm going to let you know which ones I liked and which ones I didn't like, and specifically which ones put me into a deep slump. Here is the list that I'm working with. I'm not going to lie, I was adding these covers onto the tier maker website, and I don't remember like 60% of the plots of these books. So we're going to get through this together. I'm probably going to be on my phone quite a bit referencing what I rated on Goodreads because I genuinely like don't remember a lot of these. Okay, but here are the categories I chose to go with. So top category being, and I'd do it again. And I would. Like, these are books, maybe I reread them. I'm going to reread them. I love them. They are amazing. I'm thinking about them every day. I'm recommending them to my friends, family, and peers. These books are that girl. Second is Holding Space for Her. Is this dead? This might be like a dead saying, but to me, I was like, this makes sense for me to put here. These are books that I really love, and they might not be the top of the top. I might never read them again, but they are important to me. I'm like holding space for them. I love them. I might buy them for my bookshelf. Things like that. The next one is Loved It, Couldn't Name a Character. I have a feeling this is going to be quite a lot of things. I have a tendency to like rate things 5 stars on my Goodreads. And then when I look back a month later, I'm like, what was that book about? What happened? What is it? One plot point or scene that I could name, and I can't. So they are going to be books that I like, but for like general purposes, I don't know. Like, I might tell you to read them. I couldn't tell you why or how long they are or what happens or if there's like love or romance. I like literally don't know anything about it. So the next one is Still Thinking About Her. I loved it and I'm still thinking about it, but it might not be the top of the top. She's there. We love her. She's amazing. Maybe I can name a character or two or a few plot points, but is she a 5-star? No. She's maybe like a 3.5 to a 4. The next one is Didn't Love It, Couldn't Name a Character. So as you can see, I normally can't name the characters after I finish the books, but this one is specific. I can't name a character, and I know deep down there's a hatred for her. She was a 2-star, maybe a 1-star. I probably should have DNF'd, but like I kept going. So I didn't love it. Couldn't name a character is going to go there. The last category is Don't Know, Don't Care. She's there. I read her. Don't care. Won't be thinking about her again. Probably haven't thought about it since I read it. Okay, so that's all the categories. Let's just jump right in. This year, I went heavy on Ali Hazelwood. This was like after my slump in the summer, I thought I need something to get me through, and Ali prevailed. So I had read quite a few Ali Hazelwoods in the past, but I've never read like her OG romance. I'm not like a medical student or like nurse or like anything sciencey. So I thought for me, I was like, am I going to relate to this? Am I going to care? Am I going to get the plot points? And let me just say, if you relate to that, if you are not like medical, sciencey, whatever, you should pick them up because I flew through them. So the first one was The Love Hypothesis. I rated 5 stars on Goodreads. I said, I really loved this one. Wow. Thank you for telling us, Toria, what you liked about it. And that's really, really helping me now. So I'm going to believe myself there. Honestly, as I do this, I'm going to be reading what happened in most of these books. Even if I love them, 90% of the books, I don't know. I don't know what happened. I read them on my Kindle, never saw the cover, don't know what's going on.
Is this day affecting?
Oh, girl, I remember. Okay, so this is about this med student, and she's like getting over her ex-boyfriend, and she convinced him that she's with somebody new. And then when his like new friend / girlfriend walks into the lab, she ends up kissing her professor, and then they continue to fake date for like months after that to convince everyone that she's moved on and she like has a hot new boo. So yeah, I loved this. That's all I have to say. Okay, I will say, should I put in loved it, couldn't name a character, because I couldn't name a character before that. But honestly, I might move her up to holding space for her, because I could see this being a book I reread. I remember while I was reading it, I was just like kicking my feet. I was having a good time. And to be honest, my initial review on Goodreads, I really loved this one. She knew what she was talking about. And, you know, yeah. I'm holding space for her. I think I love Olive, and whatever her boyfriend's name was, let me just like remember. Adam Carlson. Yep. This was my favorite of the Ali Hazelwoods I read. Okay. Next. Did that convince you to read the book? I hope it did. Okay, next I've got Love on the Brain. I rated it 4 stars on Goodreads. I said, this was so cute. I love Levi. Wow. We love him. We love Levi. Oh, okay. I do love Levi. I do love Levi. She knew what she was talking about. Let's see. So this was about a character. She gets hired working for NASA doing like some brain scans or something. She ends up having to work under her like college nemesis. She hated him, but now she works with him. And so it's like a enemies to lovers within the NASA science wing, discovering brain things. Okay, I'm making it sound like it's more sciencey than it is. I feel like Ali Hazelwood really writes it in naturally. Like, obviously, she has a background in all of this, so she's very smart and educated in everything that has to do with, like, academia, science, things like that, which I am just the complete opposite of. So reading this, I felt smart reading it, but it wasn't like over my head. I didn't feel like I was losing out because I don't understand what's going on. I do want to say, looking at this now, I did love Levi. He was like very smart, attractive. She was into it. They had like a quick like enemies to lovers moment. I think I loved it a little bit less than Love Hypothesis. So I'm going to put it up in loved it, couldn't name a character, because that's actually true. I did love it. I don't really remember much of the plot. So next we have Love Theoretically, another Ali Hazelwood. On Goodreads, I rated this 4 stars, and I said, Ali Hazelwood's writing style is so addicting. I enjoyed Love Hypothesis and Love on the Brain more than this one, but still good. I liked it. I obviously was reading these back to back to back, so in my head right now, they're all kind of meshing together into like one big universe. Okay, so this one, the main girl in this is her side gig. She gets hired to like fake date people. So she's hired to fake date this one guy whose family like wants him to get married and wants him to find a wife because they're rich. So she starts hanging around this family, and then she's trying to get a job as a professor at another school. And when she goes to her interview, she realizes the guy on the board interviewing her is the brother of the guy she's fake dating, T. So he like doesn't trust her, thinks that something's going on with like her and his brother, and he's being like the protective older brother. But then, she falls in love with this guy throughout the book. So it's also like a rivals, enemies to lovers, workplace romance. I remember this being like drama, like workplace drama. Like she's trying to get hired here. She has a terrible job. She's getting paid nothing. The stakes are high, and she has to convince this guy that she's actually like not a terrible person and not just trying to use his brother for his money and things like that. So let's think. Love Theoretically. I guess I'll still put it in loved it, couldn't name a character. To me, these are all very similar in the way they were written, and I enjoyed them. If she came out with another one very similar to this, I would read it right away. Like, no questions asked. It's in my hands. I'm buying it. Next, we have Mate by Ali Hazelwood. I love when Ali Hazelwood does a romantasy. She should just keep pushing them out, girl. I love them. I'll eat them up every time. This is the second book to Bride, if you read that one. So in Bride, it's like the head vampire's daughter marries the head werewolf to try to like unsever ties between their nations. It's pretty cute. I loved that one. But this one is following the vampire's werewolf human friend as she marries this other werewolf. So it's all within the werewolf realm. But it's a really cute werewolf romance, and I really enjoyed it. On Goodreads, I rated it 4 stars, and I said, I love an Ali Hazelwood romantasy. I need more. And that's very true. I'm between putting this in holding space for her and loved it, couldn't name a character. But I do feel like there were parts of me, it's been a while since I read Bride, but there were parts of me that maybe liked Bride a little bit more than this. So we're going to leave her there. We are getting into the books that changed my last few weeks. I'm not going to lie to you. Heated Rivalry. I became insanely obsessed with Heated Rivalry. I think like most people on Book Talk and who are watching the show. I watched the first 2 episodes of the show, and then I was like, I need to read all these books. So I consumed them in like 4 days before the next episode came out. I started with Heated Rivalry, which is the second book in this Game Changers series, if you haven't read any of them. So I jumped in, I skipped the first book when I started because the show follows the characters in this second book, and I didn't realize that they would be important. Heated Rivalry on Goodreads, I gave 5 stars, and I said, I ate this up, TBH. You guys, if you want more reviews like that, just follow my Goodreads. You'll really know what to read. You really will. I give so many details. I think everyone knows what this is now, but I'm just going to explain it in case you don't. This is a hockey romance that follows 2 hockey rivals over the course of like 10 years as they, you know, fall in love and try to navigate their relationship. And I would do it again. I'm going to put that straight up to the top. There's a part of me, and maybe it's because I just read it so recently, but I know this is going to stick with me. I really loved this series. I had such a great time. I have watched the show back like 4 or 5 times now, and then I made my partner also watch the show, and then I gave him a rerun of what happens in all the books. So I read this one first, and then I jumped from Heated Rivalry to Long Game. Probably, if you've read the whole series, you're going to yell at me and be like, why did you do that? But I was like in for the show. I wanted more Shane and Ilya. I wanted to know how it ended for them, what happened. So I jumped straight to Long Game, which is the 6th book in the series. On Goodreads, I gave 4 stars, and I said, obsessed with these characters, cried reading it this morning, and was giggling, kicking my feet, finishing it tonight. That's so true. I gave this less stars than I gave Heated Rivalry because I felt like that first book changed my life, or changed my month. Maybe I'll stop being so dramatic. It changed my month. When I read Long Game, I was like really into these characters. I had just learned about them the day before, and I was really devouring the book. I don't want to give spoilers to anyone who hasn't read it, but Ilya's story just gets so sad in the second book, and you're really feeling for him and his depression and everything he's going through. And I did cry reading this book, and I can't wait for the second season. So I think I'm going to put it in holding space for her. I do want to do, and I do it again because I do think I'll reread it when the second season comes out of the show. But for now, we're going to put it in holding space for her. I don't think it made as much of an impact on my life as Heated Rivalry did. So, and then unpopular opinion, after I read Heated Rivalry and Long Game, I went and read Game Changers, which is the first book in the series, and it follows different characters, Scott and Kip. On Goodreads, I gave this book 3 stars, and I said 3.5 stars. So I actually gave it 3.5 stars. Didn't love it as much as Shane and Ilya's story, but still a fun read. I really enjoyed their story, but to me, it didn't have as much depth as Shane and Ilya's story. I think that's all I really have to say about it. It also follows a hockey player and just kind of like a normal guy who works at a smoothie shop as they fall in love and then try to navigate like how they're going to have their relationship in the public eye. I'm going to put this under still thinking about her because I am, it's still with me, but like it's not as much of a, I don't know, it didn't change my life as much as the other ones, I guess. I keep saying change my life, like chill out. Okay, next. Okay, I'm gonna go through all the dark romance reads. This was less than last year, I think. So this is Corrupt by Penelope Douglas. This is the first book in the Devil's Night series. I gave it 2 stars on Goodreads and I said, yeah, IDK. It was interesting at parts, but far from my favorite from Penelope Douglas. What was this about? I have like a very vague scene of a sauna. Was that this book?
His name is Michael Christ. My boyfriend's older brother. It's like the scary movie that you peek through your hand.
Huh, okay, I don't remember this at all. What? I'm gonna go ahead and just throw it in. Didn't love it. Couldn't name a character. Because clearly I didn't love it at the time, and I, right now, can't name a character or a single plot point. I'm so sorry. I wish I could recommend this or tell you at all what happens. I know it's about, like, a girl and her boyfriend's older brother. Does he play basketball? I'm, like, getting, like, memories. Okay, it's her and her boyfriend's older brother, and he plays basketball, and she's, like, always had a crush on him, and he comes home, and then her boyfriend's, like, abusive or something. They break up, and then they have this, her and the older brother have this, like, really weird romance that's, like, really, really steamy. Oh, yeah, and she, like, moves to his city, and then he gets, like, really overbearing and protective of her, and, like, a little bit creepy, and feels the need to protect her all the time, and he also goes to this really weird, like, boys gym club. Okay, it's coming back to me, and I think where I have it's fine. Didn't love it, couldn't name a character. Because I didn't love it, and I can't name a character. But it's really close to being in don't know, don't care, because I genuinely have no idea what happened, but I don't have a hatred for it. I just remember I didn't like it. That's Corrupt by Penelope Douglas. I hope you enjoy it. Next, we have Lotus by Jennifer Hartmann. This book I gave 2 stars on Goodreads. As a man who was held captive for 20 years and literally did not communicate with anyone except his captor, Oliver is still 100 times better than Sydney at communication. This book is about a guy and a girl, and then they grow up together, and then the guy is kidnapped and held captive by a man for like 20 years or something. And then he gets out and he comes back way later and like reconnects with this girl that he spent his childhood with. And they have like a really nice rekindling, I guess, of their relationship. But what made me so mad when reading this book is the girl who literally like has just been living right outside of captivity, her normal life. She is the worst communicator ever. Like, she keeps getting mad about stupid stuff throughout the book at him. And he's, like, just trying to figure out how to read people and, like, what's going on and trying to understand things. And I hated her. I really hated her character. With Lotus, I think I'm gonna put it in. Didn't love it. Couldn't name a character. It was good. Maybe it wasn't for me. The next book we have is Caught Up by Navessa Allen. This is the second book of the Into Darkness series after Lights Out. Oh, she has a third one coming out? I didn't know that. Game On is coming out March 26th. On Goodreads, I gave it 4 stars. I said, just thinking about how confused Lauren's roommates must have been every time her and Junior got into the most dramatic fight, then immediately made up the next day. Junior's getting with Lauren in this book, and she's an adult entertainer / sex worker, I think, online. And then she also owns like an adult club that's going under, and they're trying to save it. It's pretty cute, honestly. I did really enjoy it at the time. I really enjoyed all of Navessa Allen's books that I've read so far. I think she has a really interesting writing style, and whenever I'm reading them, I'm genuinely like laughing out loud. I am personally going to put it in loved it, couldn't name a character. I knew this category was going to have a lot of things because that's just how I am. At the time I love them, and then when I move on, I don't know what's going on. Next we have Hooked by Emily McIntire. I'm just going to say up front, yes, this is Captain Hook smut. Yes, I did love it. I really loved this one. I honestly am like, no. I'm being crazy. This is, like I said, a Captain Hook inspired dark romance. On Goodreads, I gave it 4 stars. I said, I know what giving this 4 stars says about me, and I'm at peace with that. A dark romance Captain Hook? Yeah, I had fun. Yep, I did. I really did. Obviously, it's Captain Hook inspired, but they are just kind of like real people. Like, Wendy goes to this bar owned by James Hook. They have like a really dark relationship after that where he's trying to figure out like how he can use her as like a pawn in his like games to get back at her father. Honestly, it was just a good time. Like, I just had fun. I had a good time, and I don't think I need to explain that for you guys. And that's really all that matters. And if you are looking for a little bit of Captain Hook smut, I would recommend Hooked. Next, I read Little Liar by Leigh Rivers. Okay, on Goodreads, I gave this a 1 star. And I said, war is over. If you don't know about the Web of Silence duet series, you are so lucky that you are not me. So, Little Liar is the second book in the series after Little Stranger. This is a dark romance book, and this is very graphic. When I think about people who say that Fourth Wing is smutty, I just have to look at you and say that you don't understand because you've never read this book. Yeah, so this is this is a story about a girl and her foster brother. If that like idea alone makes you weirded out, just know it's worse than how it sounds. It is worse. When I read the first book, and I know what you're thinking, like, oh my God, why did you read the second book? It's like watching a car crash, okay? For me, I read the first book, and there were parts while I was reading, I was physically convulsing. I was gagging. Specifically, if you've read the book, it's like 60% in, when maybe there's like a murder. The scene after that, I was physically gagging. And when the second book came out, I said to myself, I've got to know where this goes. I have to know where this goes. And so I read it. I did this to myself, and I try to forget about this book every day, and I can't. So I'm going to put this at don't know, don't care. And I will say, if you like dark romance and you like, what the hell's going on? I would recommend this series. I think people should read it. Okay? I should not be alone. Go ahead and check it out, I guess. But for now, I'm going to leave it down there, and I'm going to try to forget that it exists. Whew. Anyway, during September and October and a little bit of November, I did get into a little bit of like a thriller, mystery, ghosty experience. So that's a lot of the books I read here that I'm going to talk about. The first one I'm going to talk about is The Winter People by Jeneva McMahon. I'm sorry if I'm saying that wrong. Jeneva McMahon. On Goodreads, I gave The Winter People 3 stars. I said, the concept is interesting, but it was a little too slow for me. I'm actually just going to go ahead and put it in didn't love it, couldn't name a character. This book was very slow. I think if you're looking for like an interesting kind of ghosty story in October, this would be a good one. It's a little spooky season vibes. It's about a family who lives in a house, and like throughout the story, you find out that like there's these like winter people outside of their house. They're basically just like ghouls or ghosts or something. And they're like wandering around outside the house, and they're trying to figure out like what's going on. I know that there were plot points that were interesting. And when I looked on TikTok, I was trying to find like spooky books to read in October. This was one that was recommended so many times. And so I was like, okay, I'm gonna read it. I just wasn't super impressed by it personally. There were a lot of things that happened in this book where I was like, ooh, like chill down my spine. That's a little creepy. If you like that, maybe check it out. But for me, I don't think I'll be reading that many other books by this author personally. The Invited, I've heard good things about, which I might check out. So we'll see. I might give it a few more tests and just see what happens. The next book is If Something Happens to Me by Alex Finlay. I gave this book 3 stars on Goodreads, and I said, a lot of characters and plot lines, which took me out of the thriller at times, a decent read, and the ending wrapped up everything nicely. So this book follows a high school guy as his girlfriend is taken and then disappears. And then in the book, he finds a note that says, if something happens to me, describing if something were to happen to this girl, like where she is, what's happened. It kind of jumps to the future where he's uncovering this mystery after he's moved on to figure out where his girlfriend went. It wasn't super memorable as a thriller. I'm going to put it in didn't love it, couldn't name a character. Next, we have The 5-Year Lie by Sarina Bowen. I give this book 4 stars on Goodreads, and I said, a capable and smart FMC in a thriller? Unheard of. Really enjoyed this. Interesting plot twists. This book was really interesting. This followed a girl as she's at work one day, and then she gets a text message from her deceased ex-boyfriend who allegedly died 5 years ago. And so then she kind of goes on this journey to figure out if he's still alive. Where is he? Like I said, her character in a thriller is so smart and capable. And that's what I loved about it, because I think so many times, like in Freida McFadden books, the female main character is just like, are we serious? Like, could we dumb her down a little bit more? And I didn't think that about The 5-Year Lie. Like, the female main character was so smart. She was self-assured. She kind of went on this journey to figure out where her boyfriend was. How can she save him? I'm going to go ahead and move this. I'm going to give it 4 stars. I'm going to put it in loved it, couldn't name a character, which just means I loved it. I just loved it, but I would recommend it. And I think I have recommended it to a lot of friends. So that's a good one. That is a good one. Next book is Hidden Pictures by Jason Rekulak. When did I read this? Hidden Pictures. What is this? Okay, on... Oh, wait. I forgot about this book. Like all of the ones that I'm talking about. I gave it 4 stars on Goodreads, and I said, I actually did not see the twist coming at all. And that is so true. This was good. This was a good book. This book follows a girl who she moves into a house and starts nannying a young boy with his family. And then weird things start happening. The boy starts drawing all these weird pictures on the wall. And then she thinks the house is like haunted because he's talking to someone all the time. She's trying to figure out what's going on, but she's also a recovering addict herself. And so she's trying to keep herself sane so she doesn't fall back into the cycle of addiction. And then the twist at the end was actually so good. The twist at the end was so good. I am going to put this in loved it, couldn't name a character. Should I add a column in between these two? Like just loved it, characters named, not a 5-star. That's what these two would be in, The 5-Year Lie and Hidden Pictures, because I did really enjoy both of them, but they're not like life-changing for me. Obviously, I completely forgot about the plots or that they existed until this very moment. So I'm gonna leave them here, but I would definitely recommend it if you're looking for a thriller as like fall comes around. Even now, hell, read it in the winter, read it in the spring. I think you'll like this one. Okay, next I read That's Not My Name by Megan Lally. I gave this 4 stars on Goodreads. I said, the last bit actually threw me for a loop. Always love a good YA thriller. So this book is about a girl who wakes up on the side of the road and she doesn't remember anything about herself. She's taken to the police station and then her father comes and takes her home. She doesn't know what to believe. She doesn't remember anything. I'm going to go ahead and put That's Not My Name in loved it, couldn't name a character, because I did give it 4 stars. I liked it while I was reading it. It's a YA thriller. It was a quick read. I flew through it. But, I mean, I couldn't tell you much of the plot now. Jesus. How am I ever going to do videos like this if I don't remember the books I'm reading? I don't know. The next book is Home is Where the Bodies Are by Jeneva Rose. This was one of the first books I read in 2025. I gave it 3 stars on Goodreads, and I said 3.5 stars. I finished this one quickly and forgot to mark. I DNF'd The Perfect Marriage, which was another book by Jeneva Rose, which I did not love. but enjoyed this one. I thought the twist was a little predictable, but still a fun read. This book is about 3 siblings who come back together to their house after their estranged mother passes away. All the siblings are very different. I remember that's what I really loved about the story, is they all had very unique personalities. So we have the oldest sibling who stayed there and cared for their mom. We have the middle child who was a drug addict, so she was never really involved with the family. And then we have the youngest, Michael, who lives out of state, hasn't been back since their father had left. And if I remember right, he was like a rich guy who's like very successful and super kind of annoying. While they're cleaning up their parents' house, they stumble upon a collection of home videos and they were watching them, reliving the nostalgia. But then there's like a really weird cutscene where their parents are like getting rid of a body. And they're trying to figure out what happened, who did our parents murder, why is this in our home videotapes, pretty much. So Home is Where the Bodies Are. I think I liked this. I mean, I gave it 3 stars. I mean, I think I'll put it in didn't love it, couldn't name a character. I didn't love it. I liked it. And I remember being like, the characters are really interesting and their dynamic is really interesting. And the mystery of it all really kind of brought me in. But in general, I don't really remember a lot about what was happening. It might be one I recommend to people though. Next, we have The Lake of Lost Girls by Katherine Greene. I gave it 3 stars on Goodreads, and I said, I really enjoyed the alternating timelines. The true crime podcast clips were a fun addition. I wasn't very surprised by the twist ending, but it was a good one. Oh yeah, okay, so this book follows a girl that went missing, and then like 20 plus years later, her sister decides to uncover her murder and where she was, and as they're like uncovering this mystery and people online are trying to solve it, again, the case is like reopened and they're trying to figure out what's happened. I remember this being really interesting to read because it's paired really well with like podcast clips. You're reading and then all of a sudden it'll cut to like a podcast script of what they're talking about for the case and what people think. I didn't love it, couldn't name a character. It wasn't, it didn't make an impact on my life. What can I say? I do think it was an interesting thriller though. And it had a lot of good, like, mystery elements to it. So, if you're looking for that, there you go, girl. Next, I read The Shining by Stephen King. I'm going to give maybe an unpopular opinion here about The Shining. So, if you're a Stephen King fan, just, like, don't bully me. You can leave. I don't know. This was my first and only Stephen King book I have ever read. I have never consumed The Shining as a movie or as the show, so I went in pretty blind about what the story was about. I give this book 3 stars on Goodreads. I said, being stuck in a haunted hotel with a man or a bear, choosing the bear. And that's true. I want to put it in don't know, don't care, but I don't want to get bullied about it. I'm going to put it at the bottom. If you like The Shining, I love that for you. I see why people love it, and I see why it's, like, the classic that it is, but it's not really, not my story, I guess. So, I'm going to put it right next to this dark romance book about foster siblings. Insane. Does everyone know what The Shining's about? I'm not even going to explain it because I feel like everyone knows what happens in The Shining. So I'm just going to go ahead and move on. And if you have a problem with it or you want to recommend me another Stephen King book, go ahead and do that down below. Okay, I love you. I really do. Okay, next, I read We Used to Live Here by Marcus Kliewer. I'm going to go ahead and move this up to holding space for her. This was spooky in all meanings of the word. I gave it 4 stars on Goodreads, and my review said 4.5 stars. I don't usually read horror books, but this made me want to jump into the genre spooky. So I read this first, and that's what convinced me I should read The Shining. And I think that's why I had such high expectations for horror, because I thought this was so interesting. This followed a girl and her wife. They live in a house, and then one night, this family knocks on their door and says, "We used to live here. Can we come in and see the house?" She's home alone before her wife gets home, so she lets them in, and then weird stuff starts happening, okay? We are thrown into spooky, scary demons. There are things in the house that are unexplained all of a sudden. We're in maybe some other dimensions. Like, it is spooky, okay? If you're gonna read a horror book, this is what I would recommend, because this genuinely made me want to read other horror books. Like, I had a shiver down my spine when they were in the basement of this house reading about this. I stayed up reading this. I was looking extra scary in the corners of the room. If someone asks me what horror book I recommend, this is the one I'm recommending. This is so interesting. You should read it if you want to be a little spooked. Next, I read a few Freida McFadden books this year, as we can see. I have read most of Freida McFadden's books, so I kind of know which ones I like and which ones I don't like. I first read The Housemaid. I gave it 4 stars on Goodreads, and I said the plot was a little predictable, but for a quick read, it definitely kept me hooked. Ranks in my top Freida McFadden books. I would agree. I think this and Teacher are probably my top Freida McFadden books. I am going to go ahead and put it in Still Thinking About Her. I do think about it quite a bit, and with the movie being released, I haven't yet seen it. I think the first one's really good. And then we get into the second one, which is The Housemaid's Secret. For the second one, I gave it 4 stars on Goodreads, and I said, and Millie ends up on top. Of course she does. I'm going to go ahead and put it in Didn't Love It, Couldn't Name a Character, because although I remember Millie and I remember she's iconic, the rest of the plot, it's kind of lost on me a little bit. And I know I didn't love it as much as The Housemaid. And it started to lose me a little bit. And then we get into the third one. The Housemaid is Watching, the third book. I give it 3 stars on Goodreads. I think that's super, super generous, actually. I said in my review, Millie becoming like every boss she ever hated. All of a sudden in this book, Millie has a house and a family, and she hires a housemaid to work under her, and then she just becomes a terrible person. This made me not like the series at all, if I'm going to be honest. And I know some people really love this series, but this third book, I just could not. I could not with Millie. I was like, she's so insufferable. She's insufferable. She becomes like every Freida McFadden female character who I hate, right? In the first 2 books, I think Millie is very self-sustaining. She's like, helps these women out. That's like her big thing. And then in the third book, she's just like a terrible person, okay? So I'm going to go ahead and put The Housemaid is Watching in Don't Know, Don't Care, because if I could, I would forget that book exists in the series. And I basically have. Next, I read The Crash by Freida McFadden, and I gave it 2 stars on Goodreads. I said, The Final Boss, an overthinking female protagonist turned antagonist written by Freida McFadden. And that is very true. That is very true. This woman is pregnant. She gets stranded in the middle of nowhere at this house with this amazing family who lets her stay with them in the middle of a blizzard while she's pregnant and hurt in their basement. And then she just overthinks the entire book. She's like, this family's trying to kill me. This family wants to keep me trapped here. This family wants to steal my baby. That's the whole book, is her internal monologue while being trapped in this basement. And for that reason, don't know, don't care. Don't know, don't care, Freida. Move on. The last Freida McFadden book I read this year was The Tenant. I gave it 3 stars on Goodreads, and I said, not ordering Chinese takeout for the next 5 business days due to the hairy noodles. And I forgot about that until just right now. And that's disgusting. If you've read this book, that's disgusting. Oh my God, bro. Who invited this man? In this book, there's this guy and his girlfriend, wife. They own this house together, and then he ends up losing his job, so they decide to take in a tenant to live with them to help pay the bills. This tenant moves in, and then the husband all of a sudden becomes that overthinking protagonist turned antagonist that's in every Freida McFadden book that we've ever read. So he starts thinking, this tenant is terrible. She's doing all these things. She's putting things in my laundry to make me sick. She's leaving the stuff out so it gets moldy. She's putting hair in my Chinese noodles. Disgusting. Actually disgusting. That scene made me sick to my stomach. I didn't want to eat Chinese noodles ever again. But he turns against her, right? To the point where he's obsessed with this woman, and his wife is like, you're obsessed with this woman. You need to stop. And then she leaves him. So that's basically the plot of the book, right? Is him just being so in his own head that he ruins everything around him. There's, of course, a crazy Freida McFadden twist ending, which, I mean, these books, if we're going to be honest, they're just quick and easy to read. So I'm like, keep them coming. Keep them coming. I'm going to put in didn't love it, couldn't name a character, because it wasn't as bad as The Crash and The Housemaid. I do remember being like, this is semi-interesting. And there were some plot points that I was like, wow, that's wild to even think of. Like the hair in the noodles, Freida. That's disgusting. I'm still stuck on that. Next, I read The Unhoneymooners by Christina Lauren. This, I think, is the first and only Christina Lauren book I've ever read. I give it 4 stars on Goodreads. I said, this was a fun read, good banter, and I enjoyed the couple. I really enjoyed this book. So this is about a girl who's at her sister's wedding, and the best man are the only 2 who don't eat at the buffet, and then everyone else at the wedding gets food poisoning. So then the bride and groom convince her and the best man that they should go on their honeymoon together so that it doesn't go to waste. So then her and the best man, who she hates, her sworn enemy, enemies to lovers moment, go on the honeymoon together and then spend the week together. And then like slowly start loving each other. I loved this. This had the right amount of like drama for me, the right amount of romance. The plot was really nice. It moved very quickly. I'm going to put The Unhoneymooners in holding space for her because I do think it was one of my favorite romance books this year, and I would put it up there with Love Hypothesis. Next, I read Meet Me at the Lake by Carley Fortune. I gave it 3 stars on Goodreads, and I said, fine for a beach read. Love the setting, didn't really care about the characters. I said that now, but looking back at this, I kind of liked Meet Me at the Lake a little bit more than I gave it credit for. I think I was reading it during a pretty bad slump, so I didn't really care about it that much. But this is about a girl who grows up at like a hotel by the lake with her mom, and they own it, and then she moves into the city, leaves her small town for a really long time. And then when her mom dies, she ends up coming back and taking care of the hotel. But when she was in the city, she had met this guy for a day that she really loved and like connected with. And then they made a pact to meet at the lake, and he didn't show up. And now in the future, she's back at the motel kind of helping to reopen it and keep it afloat. And that guy shows up. That guy that she met years ago as a teenager who she had a strong connection with shows up to like help bring the hotel back up. So now it's like going back and forth between the day that they spent together in the city and them now as adults trying to figure out what's going on and what happened to him and everything in his life that kind of kept him from coming to the lake. So, you know, I'm going to put this on still thinking about her because although it wasn't my favorite romance at the time, I do kind of think about this book and the plot a lot now and the way it was written. Next, I read Out of the Woods by Hannah Bonam-Young. I desperately wanted to like this book. I gave this book 2 stars on Goodreads, and I said, I liked the characters and related a lot to their relationship, but I found myself wanting more of a B plot, and I felt like it drug on a little bit. I felt like I was going to relate to this so much. This is about a couple. They're high school sweethearts, and they're kind of hitting this bump in their relationship. They've been together for a really long time, so they decide to go on this kind of couples retreat to the woods and find themselves, I guess, as a couple. Yeah, that is like me, girl. I've been with my partner for 10 years. We're high school sweethearts. So when I read the plot of this, I thought, okay, wait, this is like, is this play about us? You know, I kind of want to read this. And then I went into it, and that's all it was. Like, I wish that there was a little bit more of a B plot. The girl was kind of overcoming some grief on her own and dealing with the loss of a parent. I really wanted to like it, and I think that that's why I don't really love it. And I think I'm going to put it in don't know, don't care. If it sounds interesting to you, I think read it. If you relate to that, maybe you'll like it. I related to it, and I didn't like it. I think I wish there was just a little bit more of a plot going on, and that's okay. Oh, I should have put this at the beginning. I didn't realize I had another Ali Hazelwood book on here. I read Deep End by Ali Hazelwood. I gave it 4 stars on Goodreads. I said, I think this is the first sports romance book I've ever enjoyed. This was before he did Rivalry. This was long before he did Rivalry. towards the end, I got annoyed with Scarlett and the way she only ever had one singular cycle of thoughts that she repeated in every inner monologue. Also, her lack of social cues when it comes to Luca's feelings, like, come on, girl. This is about a competitive diver and a swimmer in college. They're at Stanford, and then they start a little spicy romance. I really liked the spiciness in this book. It was really different than Ali Hazelwood's other books. It was a little bit spicier, I would say. There were some kinks that were talked about a lot. I loved the mailman character. He was everything to me. I did love him. So, yeah. I loved the mailman character. That's all I'm going to say. I'm going to go ahead and put this in holding space for her. It was a really good Ali Hazelwood book. I think that the way that they dealt with like kinks and like BDSM talk was really interesting, especially for a spicy book. I think you don't really see that a lot unless it's in like a dark romance. And so it being in just kind of like a normal romance book, I thought was really, really good. And I enjoyed it. I really enjoyed it. Next, I read Margo's Got Money Troubles by Rufi Thorpe. I gave this 4 stars on Goodreads, and I said, really enjoyed this. Margo was such a good FMC. I could read a whole series of her character. And that, yes. I loved Margo. But this book follows Margo's. She has a child, and she has money trouble, so she turns to basically an OnlyFans account to make money online. And it is just so funny and witty, and Margo is such a likable character. I would 100% recommend this. I'm gonna put it in holding space for her, and if there were 10 more books about Margo, I think I would read them. She was very likable as a character. Next, I read The Wedding People by Alison Espach. I gave it 4 stars on Goodreads, and I said, divorced, depressed woman who goes to a motel to off herself, but ends up being the maid of honor to a woman who she doesn't know while having an emotional affair with the groom. That is how you write a review. I completely know what the book is about. And that is it. It was about a woman who goes to a hotel. She's depressed and sad, and her life has changed a lot, and she's trying to figure out who she is. And as she's there, she meets the bride. She ends up being the best, the maid of honor in her wedding. And then she has an emotional fight with the groom. Enough said, It was really interesting. I love the way it was written. I'm going to put it in holding space for her. I think about it a lot, and it's a book that's really stuck with me this year. I would definitely reread it, and I would recommend it to a lot of people. Okay, next I read Sunrise on the Reaping. Duh. This is the prequel Hunger Games book that came out this year. I mean, duh, it's Hunger Games. I'm putting it at the very top, and I'd do it again. And I would do it again. I give it 5 stars on Goodreads. Susanna is a mastermind, and we are her pawns. I'm always in awe of how she makes these characters fit together without an ounce of a plot hole. Haymitch, Mags, Wyrus, Beatty, Effie, Plutarch. This was everything I needed and more. And I stand by that 100%, and I would do it again. And I've always loved Haymitch's character, so kind of seeing it flesh out within this book was beautiful, and I cannot wait for the movie. I will be there at the midnight release. You will catch me at the movie. I loved it, and I would read a million more Hunger Games books if I could. It's the best series ever. Next, I read Onyx Storm. So before I read this, I did reread the other 2 books in the Fourth Wing series. Love them. So this is the 3rd book in the Fourth Wing series. I give it 4 stars on Goodreads, and I said, another case of, am I stupid, or was the plot all over the place? And I don't think I'm alone in thinking this. I think a lot of people loved the first 2 books, and I think this book was kind of, in a way, leading to the next. But we still love her. I don't know if it was my favorite book in the series. I've only read it once so far. I do think I'll read it again soon. So I'm going to go ahead and put Onyx Storm by Rebecca Yarros in holding space for her, because I'm holding space for it to get better. I really am. And I still love her. And I think she's doing an amazing job, and I respect the series. And every time I reread them, I'm happy. And that's all that matters to me, that I'm happy. Next, I read Shield of Sparrows by Devney Perry. This is the first book in the Shield of Sparrows series, and it's the only one that's out so far. The next one comes out this year, Rites of the Starling. I gave Shield of Sparrows 4 stars, and I said, this was nothing new for romantasy and had a lot of cliches, but I was eating it up. Would recommend if you enjoyed Fourth Wing or Powerless. So when I started recording this video, I pulled all of these images onto the tier website. And when I pulled this image of the book cover, I said to myself, what is that book? I've never read that book. I have no memory of that book. And how did it end up here? So I did like a 10-minute deep dive earlier trying to figure out the plot of this book. And I have very vague memory of reading it. But I know I liked it. And I read it right before I started my reread of Quicksilver by Callie Hart. So to me, I think these 2 books are maybe getting mixed in my brain. Watching like a few people recap it on TikTok, and I was like, what? I thought I dreamt that up. I thought I dreamt that plot up. Apparently it's real. It was about a girl from a kingdom, and then she's forced to marry this man from another kingdom. And then there's like monsters. Describes every romantasy book ever. I'm going to put it in loved it. Couldn't name a character, but I do fear I need to reread it like very soon and probably take more detailed notes on what happens because I have not a single concept of this book. And there's no part of me that remembers this existing. So we're going to put it in loved it. Couldn't name a character. But yeah, I remember I liked the male love interest. Does that matter? Anyway, let me know what you thought of this book and what your favorite part was. And then maybe I'll remember if anything comes to mind. Next, I read Fearless by Lauren Roberts. This is the 3rd book in the Powerless trilogy. I enjoyed Powerless. And I think I enjoy Lauren Roberts as a writer. I think she's amazing. And, you know, the empire she's been able to build on the trilogy is really impressive. But I did give this 2 stars on Goodreads. And I said 2.5 stars. I'm sorry, but it felt like we were trying to hit a word count on this one. I don't want to spoil for anyone who hasn't read the other 2 books. So if you haven't, maybe skip ahead just a little bit. This is about Peyton as she's forced to marry Kit in this book, but she's obviously in love with his brother Kai, who she just spent the last book, you know, traveling with and coming back to the kingdom with. I gave it 2.5 stars, and looking at it now, I think that feels a little too nice. I liked the first book. I enjoyed the second book. You kind of lost me with the 3rd book a little bit, so I'm going to put it in don't know, don't care. Ooh. Anyway. Ooh. Next, I read The House of My Mother, A Daughter's Quest for Freedom by Sherry Frankie. This is a memoir. If you know anything about their story or what they went through, it was a very good read. I originally set my goal for this year to read more nonfiction, and then I didn't really get there. But I do think I want to try to do that as we go into 2026 because this was genuinely one of my favorite books of the year. I think Sherry's writing was great. The way she told her story was amazing, but I'm going to put her in Still Thinking About Her. I didn't rate it on Goodreads, obviously. I don't feel super comfortable rating nonfiction memoirs because, you know, it's someone sharing their life story, and it feels weird to put like a star amount on that. I think Sherry did an amazing job sharing her story here, and I would definitely recommend it. There's also an audiobook version of this where Sherry's reading the story out loud, so if you're interested in that, definitely check it out. Next, okay, this is a crazy jump from the last book. I'm not going to lie to you. I read Tender is the Flesh. I gave it 3 stars on Goodreads, and I said, this is the most disturbing book I have ever read. And it is. This book I cannot get out of my head for the life of me. This follows a society where they no longer eat meat from animals, and they have turned to eating humans. This book made me feel physically ill for days after I read it. But in the book, the main character works for a human mill where they basically raise humans up to the point where they can slaughter them and turn them into meat to process as food and sell. It's very interesting to read, but I would say it is incredibly nauseating, I think is the best word for it. The writing's a little too like realistic feeling about eating humans, and I'm going to put Tender as a Flesh and Still Thinking About Her. This is a book I would recommend to people if you think it's something that you could handle mentally. Don't read it while you're eating, and maybe just like not around like lunch or dinner time in general, because it is disgusting and it might make you want to be vegetarian. This isn't the last book I read this year. The last book I'm going to talk about is I Who Have Never Known Men by Jacqueline Hartmann. I gave this 5 stars. This is a quote from the book that I wrote as my review. Sometimes the women pitied me, saying that at least they'd known real life, and I was very jealous of them. But they died, as I am about to die. And what does having lived mean once you are no longer alive? Bars is what I wrote. This book is about a woman. She is raised underground with a lot of other women from birth in captivity, being guarded by a few men. And then one day their cell opens up and they're able to get out into the real world. And so they climb up out of their bunker and they're in the real world trying to figure out what does life mean as someone who has never lived around men. She's grown up surrounded by women and has only seen men as the captors that kept her inside her cell. These women who she's been captive with have had experiences with men in the outside world, but she has not. And so she doesn't really understand sexual pleasure or relationships with men outside of them being her captors. I think that this book, it doesn't have a lot of an ending. It's very ambiguous in the way that it ends. The author, Jacqueline, doesn't really tell you this is what happened. This is the society these women are in now. This is what occurred to get them in that bunker. It doesn't answer those questions for you. So if you're looking for a book where maybe you get those answers, this is not the one. This is more of like a mirror onto yourself. After I finished it, the last line, I kind of just sat with myself for a little bit and I was like, that was kind of crazy. I know some people don't like this book, and that's fine. For me, it's a book that I still think about a lot, and I'm going to put it in Still Thinking About Her. I think it'll stick with me. And I would recommend it to some people, regardless of what other people say. But those are the books that I read this year. My goal for this next year is to read more of those books at the top, and I'd do it again. Because truly, I think the reason that I read is just to find things that make me happy and make me want to keep picking up other books. Thank you for watching. I might make more videos like this in the future. This is my first one, so if you enjoyed it, you can subscribe. I am on Book Talk if you didn't come from there, and I am on Bookstagram. Those links will be down below. Obviously, you can follow me on Goodreads. I'm not sure how motivated you will be to follow me on Goodreads after you saw some of the reviews I just read from this past year. So that link will be down below too. Feel free to follow me there, and thank you for watching. I will see you next time. Bye.